Hello and welcome to the Peaceful Empowerment Work Show. We are coming to you live on WGSN-DB, goingboldmedia.com. I am your co-host Judy Forder, and I am here with my co-host in peace, Miss
Kris Burke. Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Before we get started, if you like the content that we put out and you would like us to help us share it with the masses, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Today's topic: how we trade our joy and well-being for money is dead wrong. Yeah. That's a loaded one.
Yep. It is loaded. All of the things that are coming to mind right now, I'm actually like, well, let's just save that one. It's a little...
Table that for a second.
Yeah. Let's ease into this a little bit.
Yes.
I'm not good at that. Actually, neither of us really is, because we're Sagittarian, right? So,
Yeah.
which it is a thing. We are blunt. We also are protectors. We want people to feel safe. And Judy is especially good at that. If she's like a superhero. If there's ever somebody who's being cornered, or even potentially thought to be cornered by someone who might be a little bullying, Judy is instantly in her superhero costume between the perpetrator and the victim, pretty much 100% of the time. Yeah.
My protector is very strong. That is true. I will.
Yeah. I mean, it comes from a really good place. That's pretty clear. So yeah. So, which is part of the reason I understand now, because it's part of the reason why I don't want to just really be 100% as blunt as I might be, because then I know the protector is going to jump up and get between me and the audience, and I'm not sure.
He does that because it's happened before.
Oh, it's happened a lot. Yeah. You know what? So let's start here. Let's talk about, we've all heard about poverty mentality, right? So let's talk about poverty mentality a little bit, and what makes poverty mentality kind of a zone 1, zone 2 experience. What makes that different from, let's call it, prosperity mentality, which is your zone 3, zone 4 experience?
Yes, the poverty mentality, zone 1, zone 2. I know zone 1 for me was, I have to stay in this job because I can't afford to go anywhere else.
Right.
It is toxic. It does not fill me up. It does not bring me joy. But this is where I am. And this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 25, 30 years, because there's retirement at the end and it provides me with benefits. And, and the funny thing is, once I had a kid, I was totally fucked. That too kept me locked in that poverty, because I had someone else to care for now. It wasn't just me.
Yeah.
And that, societal beliefs, whatever it is we want to talk about, patterns and all that kind of stuff, kept me locked in. I can't do something. I can't take the chance to do something that I love or lights me up, because now what if it fails?
Right.
What if I fail?
Right.
And that's not to say that, any of you that have been watching the show know that I was a teacher for 24 years. And my passion was working with the children. And that's what I loved. Coaching, that's what I loved. But there was so much that started going wrong. Well, started to show itself in the education system, that it's like everywhere I turned, my hands were tied. And yeah, I didn't want to be tied anymore. But I stayed in that much longer than, had I lived in a 3-4 zones, I wouldn't have stayed as long as I did. But it was
Right.
that poverty mentality that kept me locked into a job that was not fulfilling anymore.
Yeah, and actually, what's interesting is I think most people can relate to that, right? And so, although most people may not identify with poverty mentality, I
Mm.
know I wouldn't have, which is kind of funny, actually, because now it's so clear to me what a poverty mentality I had and how I've struggled to find out what does a poverty mentality mean? How do you know if you're living in a poverty mentality versus a prosperity mentality? And if we're afraid to kind of look at poverty mentality, or we just sort of dismiss it and say that's not me,
Hmm.
and we don't want to look at it, we're not curious about it, there's a good chance, I know that wasn't true for me, that I wasn't looking at something that was causing a lot of my struggling, right? That I was actually afraid to look at it because once you look at it, it changes.
Hmm.
You don't even necessarily have to do anything. And this is the part that's, so confusing for people. You don't necessarily have to do anything. Once you've seen something, the truth of something, the the change, the shift in the way you think and feel and act will happen on its own. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. My whole belief system of money, and we grew up middle class, um, living paycheck to paycheck. I remember sitting in the living room watching cartoons when my parents were at the table laboring through paying bills, and which one do we pay now and which one can we put on hold. And I remember the energy of that. It's interesting because I don't remember conversations, but I remember the stressful energy of that.
Yeah.
And that was, definitely something that played out in my life as well.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that. So, in a really tangible way, which really grounded way, when we're in zone one and we're thinking about the workforce, right? Getting ready for the workforce, and we're in that we're struggling to survive. We're just trying to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table, and just keep our heads upright, right? Um, we're looking at employment, at least in my family, we did as you hope there's an opening and they'll choose you.
Mhm.
Somebody will need something done that you can do, that you're qualified to do, that you have some experience to do, or you're willing to do, right? Could be different categories of things. Um, and then somebody needs to be looking to hire somebody, and you hope that they'll choose you. So in
Mhm.
that process, it's really just like, I need a job working for somebody who's willing to hire me and pay me.
Yeah. It's a very desperate energy.
It's a very desperate energy.
Yeah.
Because nowhere in that process is there the thought of like, what kinds of things do I want to do, or even what kinds of things am I willing to do,
Hmm.
right? Or how much do I choose to earn? Like, what's the lifestyle that I choose going to cost, and what kind of a path do I need to be on to enjoy that lifestyle? It's just how much does this job pay? And they say it pays X, and you're like, oh, it's not enough, but okay,
Right.
right? How can I make my life smaller and smaller and smaller, and my desires smaller and smaller and fewer, until I can live within what somebody else decided I could have?
Hmm. Yeah.
It
It's not
sounds
even,
super depressing.
I was going to say, it's, you're like, totally killing my vibe here. No.
Yeah. See? Yeah. Sorry about that. That's true. I really
No.
did.
No. But that's what it's like, that stress of these bills are coming due and I don't have enough money in the bank and I need to buy food. And, a lot of people are finding themselves there
Yeah.
again after
Yeah.
COVID, during COVID. We say the C word, but I mean, that was a period of time where a lot of small businesses closed down. A lot of businesses that were successful and thriving prior to that, just you didn't plan for it because things were going so well. And then all of a sudden
Right.
the world shut down. What do
Yeah.
you do?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with this pattern with this feeling that have found, they found themselves thrown into it because
Yeah,
of things they could not control. They really couldn't control what was going on with the world. But
absolutely.
here you are. So, if it's familiar, if it's unfamiliar, it's heavy. It's a heavy place to be.
It is a heavy place to be.
And for us to sit here and say, find your joy, align with that, and everything will come you can be like, yeah, and ladies what are they smoking? Give me some
What
of
is
that.
It's so true. But let's talk about that because Judy and I both lived in zone 1 in the world. And we were 100% believing that that was the way the world worked and that was what was available to us. And I'd like to say at some point, we both made our way to zone 2 separately, where we decided that, we got angry enough, fed up enough, maybe, with the way the systems worked. That we were just like, I can't do this anymore. It's literally making me sick.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Thank you, Cece. Yeah. So in that zone 2 place, where you get, you start to feel like I want something different. I don't know what I want. I don't know what else there is because I haven't experienced it, but I know it's not this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's where that anger, and a lot of times, what do? We quit jobs. We do things impulsively because of anger, and then we later regret it, and we tell ourselves that that was a mistake, and I should have figured out a different way. But the truth is, without that anger stage, we never would have made our way separately. This is we both met when we were kind of hanging out in zone 3 and trying to figure out how to be in the world in a way that was personally meaningful. And you get into zone 3 in that intuition space, and you can start to think about, what is it? I know I didn't want that, but what is it that I do want? And is that possible? Right? Where's the evidence that it is? What do people have to say about that? Right? We start questioning the fact that we had just blindly accepted that this is the way the world works, and tough if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Right? And that anger is a gift. And just that last point of that anger is a gift. So for a long time, I felt like I had been too impulsive, too quick to make decisions about leaving toxic environments. Right. And I have just recently really come back. I've been through some experiences where I'm like, wow, this totally reminds me of those old toxic environments. And I'm such a different person now, in such a different place, that I'm having a completely different experience. And I understand now that it's because I got angry, because that anger and that no, this is not enough for me, and I'm not staying here, propelled me out of there. And you know what? The universe got me.
Mm-hmm.
So that anger was a gift.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, I think for me, yes, the anger was there. And then once I admitted that I had anger about it, I opened my mind to experiencing some different things.
Mm-hmm.
And then with some different experiences, experiencing joy again, because
Mm-hmm.
I had lost track of what that felt like in a life where I should have been. There were plenty of things for me to be happy about, but I was so locked into that zone 1 where it was just all about survival. I couldn't even acknowledge. I could acknowledge it, but I couldn't feel it. I was numb.
Yeah.
I was in that survival mode for so long that I just had to go numb. So not only did I numb out the bad stuff, but I numbed out the good stuff too.
Yeah.
So, you're absolutely right. That anger at least lit something in me. Like I'm not dead inside. There is something in there.
Yes, you're feeling again. Yeah.
Yes, which then led to craving. I started
Mm-hmm.
to crave something different.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the big one for me, because I didn't just walk in one day and quit my job.
Mm-hmm.
I started, I worked part-time when I had my daughter, and then I started to have these different experiences. And then on my off time, when I wasn't teaching, I was exposing myself to Reiki and other things, just things that brought me joy. Then I
Mm.
was able to enjoy being with my daughter, and I was able to enjoy the people in my life. And the more that happened, the more I craved for something different,
Yeah.
which, allowed me to start asking myself, trusting myself, and putting myself, it really put me in environments with other people that were craving more too,
Mhm.
which helped. I mean, that helped me keep that fire burning,
Mhm.
that it's okay that you're craving more.
Yeah.
It's okay that you want different. It's okay that money isn't going to dictate your happiness. And that's not to say that I still didn't have that survival technique flowing in the back of my mind, because you have a kid, you have to provide. So it's there, but it took a different role.
Right.
It didn't dominate every single decision I made, and that has been a process. Kris has had a front row seat for the majority of that.
Mhm.
Shifting my relationship with money. And, here comes the word, not prostituting myself and my joy
Yeah.
so that I could survive
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know that I know when I was living in zone 1 and zone 2, I had bleeding ulcers and panic attacks. And at the time, I thought that my body was betraying me. My body so inconvenient. I mean, I could just stay here and toil away all day and grit my teeth and, get my work done for the money that wasn't enough to actually cover my lifestyle. Uh, and I've got these physical symptoms happening that are getting in the way, right? They're making it difficult for me because I'm drinking Maalox out of the bottle and I'm bent over, and sometimes I have to go to doctor's appointments because of this inconvenience.
Meanwhile, your body's
Mm.
screaming at you, stop.
Yes, my body is screaming like, "This is not healthy for you.
Mm-mm.
This is not healthy for you." And to be clear, the environment I was in was not healthy for me. In one of my jobs, part of my job was to fire people.
Mm.
So, I was the CFO. I wasn't like a, witch doctor or something. But they would send people down to go talk to Christine, and people would start to sweat,
Oof.
because they thought, "Oh my God, here it comes. Like she's gonna fire me." I hated that. These people were my friends. It was a 50-person company. And it ate me alive because the reasons that they were being fired were very emotional reasons. They were the reasons of people who perceived reality in a, as most of us do, in distorted ways.
Mhm.
So they would walk in one day and somebody would look a certain way, and they would be like, "Why is that person here? Get rid of them." And I am not exaggerating. So it was really toxic, and my body was screaming at me, like, "You are so out of alignment right now. You are so out of integrity. This is not what you believe, how you believe the world should work, and you're carrying out the orders." And it made me think of different times in world history where people have carried out the orders of, people telling them to do atrocious things. And I guess, you watch a movie and you see the like a hanging or something, watch an old Western, right?
Mhm.
I used to watch those as a kid. And of course, you might be standing there thinking about what's the person who's going up there to be hung thinking about right now. I'd be sitting there thinking about the person who was pulling the,
Yeah.
how are they doing this? Right? What's going on? Are they, how are they going about doing that? And in a way, in that toxic environment, and it's an exaggeration, but in a way, I was living that because I was being told to do it, and well, it's my job, and so I would do it. And so I wasn't taking responsibility for the fact that I was actually doing things that were completely out of alignment with what was in my heart and my head. My head knew, like, that's not cool. And I would, yeah, yeah, shh, we're getting a paycheck.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny because they want me to switch gears. Yes, we've talked a lot about the money aspect of it, but you can prostitute yourself based on energy, emotion, presence with people as well.
Yeah.
When you're constantly pouring, giving, 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 and receiving nothing back, that's another way of prostituting yourself, because you continue to give thinking, for me, my experience was give thinking that it's going to fill a void. Somebody's going to finally see me. Somebody's finally going to appreciate me. If I give and give and give and give, then they're not going to hate me because I'm fat or gay. You know, give, 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 give. Buy big gifts. Be present. Always be the one that's helping. You know, run in there and save the day. My hero. you know, uh, I always, there's a light and shadow in every character aspect.
Hmm.
And that was one of the shadows with my hero. I convinced myself that it was my job to fix everything for everybody. And it was not good for them. It was not good for me.
Yeah.
But, another way my prostitute was showing herself was through those acts. And it's not that I don't do for people. It's not that I don't give for people. And it's not that I only give if I get something in return. But that's not my baseline characteristic anymore. It's not the way I show up in this world.
Right. Right.
You
Yeah. There's a big difference between people pleasing
hmm
or self-sacrificing and giving from a sense of, joy, caring, like, here, I'd like to give this to you because I can and it feels good to give,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But it does not feel good to give when you're doing it because you feel like you have to or the world's going to come to an end. And
Yes.
when
Or
we're walking around in the poverty mentality, we feel that way.
yeah. Obligation.
Yeah.
Really start asking yourself, am I doing this out of obligation, or am I doing this heart-centered because I want to?
Right.
Because if you're doing out of obligation, it builds resentment. If you have your
Mhm.
resentment in your life, take a breath and ask, where is this coming from? And it's
Mm.
usually going to trickle, 9 times out of 10, it's going to trickle down to you're doing something that you don't want to do. You're doing it because you feel you have to.
Yeah. Absolutely. How many times do we say, I have to?
hmm
And if you ask yourself, why do I have to? Well, because nobody else will. That's a warning flag.
That's that toxic superhero.
Yeah.
If I don't do it, nobody else will. Well,
Right. Right. Maybe that's true. I mean, sometimes there are things that's true. If I don't feed my dog's going to starve. Right? Because she could ask my husband to feed her, but he's not gonna he doesn't pick up on those kinds of clues. He does all kinds of great things. Feeding the animals isn't really his thing. So he probably wouldn't notice if she looked different. I don't know. It's just so it is true that I need to feed the dog,
hmm
but it is not true that I need to feed somebody else's dog if they're not able to do it.
Right. Well, and you have your dog because you love your dog.
Yes.
There's that baseline of love,
Yes.
you
Yes,
know?
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's not that because we actually I think you remember having that circumstance where somebody asked me to feed,
hmm
dogs while they were away for a week or whatever.
hmm
And it was like feeding and walking a couple of dogs while also doing my life and taking care of my animals and my horses and whatnot. And so it just was complete overwhelm. And I felt obligated to do it because if I didn't do it, who else would?
hmm
And the thing is, that was one of those clear examples where if I had just said, no, I don't have the capacity to do this, or you know what, I'd come over and let them out in the morning.
hmm
That's what I can offer. That would have been one thing. But instead, I felt obligated to do it. And then it was too much for me. So if I had said no, they would have found another way to do it, is my point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And a big word that is strong in my vocabulary now is I'm not available.
Right. Yeah.
And that means a lot of things. Maybe I'm physically not available because I am doing something else, or maybe I just don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with it right now. So no, I'm not available.
Right.
Because before, I always felt like I had to. If anybody asked, do it. If anybody asked, do it. It doesn't matter. Rearrange your schedule, make it happen.
Yeah.
And I have learned to give myself permission because my time is valuable.
Hmm.
I'm able to sit here and admit that my time is valuable. And, part of learning to take care of yourself first, and we throw the empath around, but, when you learn to take care of yourself first, it means not only the physical things, it means the emotional and spiritual things too.
Hmm.
Giving yourself that time, that downtime, that alone time that you need to recharge.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what you said about your time being valuable, right? So let's just use schools because I mean, we all have gone to school or, teach at a school. We all can relate to school. So in zone one, we have the people who are there because they feel like they have no choice
Hmm.
and they're just trying to get through the situation. And that could be the students, and that can be the teachers, and that could be the administrators. You don't know. Who's
Everybody
have
in that.
everybody in that building could be. Now there are also people in the buildings who are in zone 2 who actually are in a position where they're saying, I know this could be a different experience and I want to make that happen. And all I have to do is get these people to do things my way and everything will be better.
Hmm.
Right. So you also have people who are working themselves to the bone, trying to improve the situation.
Hmm.
Also, probably being eaten alive inside because they're banging their heads against the wall, and some part of their body by now is saying to them, "This isn't working. You're getting a headache.
Hmm.
Stop banging your head against the wall." Right. And then we go into zone 3, and you actually start to ask other people, like, "What do you want in this environment?" You're looking for people who want the same kind of environment. So Judy's still teaching, right? But now she's teaching. She hired herself and she's creating a school environment where people want to be prosperity minded, where they want to learn how to be prosperity minded, where they want to coach, where they love what they're doing, and there's no yeah but.
Yes. Yes. And it all starts with self-awareness.
Mhm.
Because if you can't identify where you are, how do you move forward?
Right.
So self-awareness is based in truth. You have to be able to tell yourself the truth.
Mhm.
You have to be able to tell yourself the truth. That is the big one.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy.
It isn't, and I hear a lot of people talk about retirement. I've had a lot of teachers talk to me about 3 years from retirement and 5 years from retirement, whatever it is. So those pensions, right? So I can't leave now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and one of the things we could say about that is, there are ways. It's all about choice, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And there are ways to be in a toxic environment where you're not getting sick.
Yes. I was, it's okay. Because I worked 2 more years after I knew, I declared in 2 years, I'm done teaching.
Hmm.
So I made a commitment to myself in that 2 years. I wasn't gonna show up every day dreading going to work.
Hmm.
I was gonna make it work for me. So I started to do things and see things differently and see how I could bring more light to that toxic environment. And it shifted everything. Of course, not enough to make me want to stay and
Hmm.
do that for the rest of my career, but it proved to me that I can be the one that comes in and sheds more light in the darkness. I can bring happiness and joy with me. I can help provide that for others, yet not feel responsible for doing it.
Right.
It was very different when I just showed up and I allowed myself to be me without the pressure of trying to change the system.
Bingo. And that's the big one, right?
Hmm.
Because when we're in zone 3, we're going in and we're exploring and experimenting. What can I do? What if I try this? What if I ask the kids what they'd like to do?
Hmm.
What would make coming to school fantastic for you? What kind of environment do you want here? What are your ideas about how we might build that? I mean, you can get the kids excited and engaged. I just got goosebumps. Um, in their own learning process, and then you have students who know how to learn for life, right? That's incredibly invaluable, and participating in that is beautiful. But if you're in a position where, not but, and if you're in a position where you need to convince or, you know, oppose other forces in the school system, you know, if they flat out say, no, you're not allowed to do that
Mm-hmm.
in this system, then finding peace in a place where they're not allowing you to show, um, you know, your true self,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and things are changing. Things are shifting. I have a
Mhm.
client who teaches, and one of the big things last year was about, okay, how do you infuse your techniques of finding peace in your world into your classroom for these
Mhm.
kids?
Mhm.
And she started doing things. I mean, she this year has brought her singing bowls into
Mm.
and they do a brief little meditation and get present before taking tests and quizzes, and the kids love it.
Of course.
The kids absolutely love it. And she actually has done a sound bath meditation she offered it to the faculty, and she had 20 people show up.
Wow, that's great.
Principal, I believe, I don't remember correctly, maybe the assistant principal was there, and interestingly enough, the superintendent's wife.
Wow.
And they've asked her to do it once a month now, because this is the interesting thing. She got the upper hand's attention because her test scores were improving,
Yes.
and they wanted to know what she was doing.
Yes.
So they came in and visited her classroom.
Mhm.
When you can get people into that space and they can feel safe and peaceful, it allows the mind to work in levels that we don't even understand yet.
That's right. It's right. And these 4 zones, these 4 realms that we're looking at here, they are like places. You know, they're not really concepts. I mean, when we're in instinct, our minds are working a certain way. We're
Mhm.
noticing certain things. There is a very limited range of emotions that are available to us, and those emotions are attached to certain thoughts and to certain actions, and that's it.
Mhm.
And when we're in zone 1, we're going to be defensive. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to be in fight or flight.
Mhm.
We're going to be waiting for the other shoe to drop. That is not a great place to take a test because your brain is literally not working,
Mm.
right? Your thinking brain is not working. You're not able to access huge parts of your brain because you're in that lower reptilian brain, which is just focused on survival.
Yep.
It's looking for the danger, right? So kids who live afraid that somebody's going to blow up at home or there's, you know, not enough of whatever. And then they go into a classroom and they're holding that vibration of scarcity, of, you know, a fear of, you know, and what's wrong with me and all of those kinds of things that all of us can touch on. All of us can, you know, feel that in us somewhere. If you bring them into a classroom and you sit and create one of these other vibrations where they have access to some of these other emotions and the thoughts and behaviors that become available automatically when you change their energy, when you help them to shift to one of these other zones, new possibilities open up for them, and you don't have to tell them what those possibilities are.
Mm-mm. Nope. And yeah, it creates the environment to allow them to go places and access things that they've never even dreamed possible.
Yeah. And actually, Judy, you said something yesterday. We do horse programs, right? So we've brought kids from the school here to do horse programs. And one of the things we do is we practice shifting energy from wherever it is to a zone 3 or zone 4 energy. And we do that with the horses. And maybe you want to tell people what that experience was like.
It was amazing for me because this is getting present was something that Kris introduced in class. So we would do it over Zoom and all that kind of stuff. And it's very impactful. It worked great for me. but it's me on a camera dealing with myself and not seeing how it really affects, yes, I would try it with my animals here or whatever. But when we had that retreat and I was in that barn with those horses, and haven't been around a lot of horses in my life, and they're big and they have big energy. So when we were able to get present, full disclosure, one of the ladies that was at the retreat with us, who we love and adore, brought apple slices for the horses. So they were so excited, and they had this very, especially Addie, had this very forward, aggressive energy about her, and kind of started charging. Not that she was going to hurt anybody, but she wanted some damn apple slices.
Yeah. And actually, I would say, oh, you just sort of disappeared for a second. And actually, Addie was not aggressive, but I
No.
understand why it seemed like
Uh-huh.
she was being aggressive, because she's used to, we do games and she gets treats. And
Mhm.
she's on Seinfeld, they would have called her a close talker. And she's very tall,
Uh-huh. Oh,
right?
she's beautiful. She's
Mhm.
big. And for me, again, not being around horses, see, I interpreted that as not aggressive and a mean, I'm going to hurt you, but
Yeah.
give me some damn apple slices.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas I was reading it more as like apples. Yeah, please.
So yes, there was a level of anxiety within me, but when we sat in that barn and we did the practice of getting present, it was amazing to me to watch the animals, because animals don't lie. Their energy doesn't lie. I mean, it was a matter of a minute and a half. The entire energy of the barn had shifted. And I mean, the horses were damn near asleep.
Mhm.
Everything was so calm and peaceful.
Yeah.
So this is something I have been doing. And yes, it works for me, blah, 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 blah. But to see it with these huge animals that I knew I was carrying anxiety, uh, you know, and it was freaking miracles. It was like a miracle.
Absolutely, it is. I mean, everything changes. And I learned this technique. It's called the trust technique. And I learned this from James French. And I took one of his e-courses. I took the shorter course, and I'm actually going to do the certification because it really
Life
changed.
changing.
It
It's
is
life.
life changing. Yeah, it is absolutely life changing because
Mhm.
the horses, like Judy said, the horses aren't, they don't have an ego.
Mm-mm.
So they're not trying to convince you of this or that. They're just present in the experience. If they're not afraid, if they feel the energy of there's nothing to fear, they are very quick to relax into that and
Mhm.
allow themselves to be in that peaceful healing energy. They just, everything changes. You can see it. It's like it's a different animal. And when you experience that with the animals, and the amount of time between when you introduce that focus and make that third, fourth zone available to them, and they get into that, they accept it and get into it, gets shorter and shorter and shorter. And pretty soon they'll walk up to you, and the two of you just, boom, you're there. Right.
Yeah.
And if that's available to the horses, is it available to kids? I mean, I didn't have to teach the horses anything. I
Mm-mm.
just made the energy available, and they responded naturally, organically to it. And it turns out that it's the same with children, but you bring the children in with the horses,
Mhm.
and the kids naturally follow the lead of the horses, but they're also in this, like, who doesn't get starry-eyed over horses? Like, I was always a horse kid, so a horse girl. So we're starry-eyed, a little gaga over horses anyway. But the kids come in and they're just like, wow, but they can feel this majestic presence. It's not just the animal, it becomes this animal that you can really communicate with, that you can really connect with, that's aware that you're there
Mhm.
and likes you.
Yeah. And not, here we're going to be blunt. In a world that's filled with bullshit and fakeness, for them to work with the animals, for me to work with the animals, because I'm not going to let, the little cynic in me, I used this process for months before I went to the retreat and was with the horses.
Mhm.
And then the little cynic mind, was like, is this really working? is this, you creating this space, doing this? And then being able to see it with the horses was like, yeah, I mean, this shit is real. This is,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
And with the kids, it wasn't Kris saying, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to get president, and you're going to feel this. It was, okay, focus here. This is what we're going to do for this period of time. She doesn't tell them what to expect because we don't know. Every experience is different.
Mm-hmm.
And the horses don't lie. So when they're feeling something and they can see it in the horses as well, that's as real as it gets.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very powerful. Some of the kids, actually, we went down to the riding ring because we have different things. You have a big ball you can play with. You can take the horses over tarps. It's all very, the kids and the horses playing. So it's not structured. And some of the girls were having an opportunity to play with the horses, and instead they laid down on the grass and they slept. This is what the horses were doing when I first started to introduce them to this zone, is they would sleep because they were healing. They would yawn, they would shake their heads, they would stretch. Sometimes they would make a "I hate you" face, right? Or sort of lunge at you a little bit because they had all of this zone 1, zone 2 energy in them that was trapped. And once they had that higher energy that was creating a safe place for them to heal, they were letting go of that old energy. Eventually, that old energy doesn't show up anymore because they've been cleaned of it. But to see the girls lying on the ground in the sun, smiling and so relaxed and feeling so safe, I knew they were healing. They were opening to healing. And what a much more beautiful thing than them being forced to go do something, right, with the horses because we decided we thought that was better for them, when it was clear that they were getting exactly what they needed. It was quite profound, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we've come to the end of another show.
Oh, say it ain't so. I miss you guys already.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just self-awareness is what we promote. And when we're talking about trading your joy and your well-being for money, whether it be financial, cash money, whatever, or the energy of you, because that's your energetic currency. Just take a look at it and really find out where you're doing out of obligation and doing out of choice, and see what's working for you and what's not working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we have a lot of new things that are coming with the Peaceful Empowerment Works show. And some of the things that we were boiling in the frying pan have been tossed out, and we're bringing new things in because of the new energy. So our 3 levels of engagement, you can always come and watch the show. Workshops have been put on hold. We still have 12-week programs that we're offering, and they're growing and evolving. So
yeah. The workshops are actually more going to be the Peaceful Empowerment Works. It's going to be branching out separate from Masterful U to bring workshop opportunities directly into classrooms and retreat centers and things like that, places for parents and kids to come alone and separately, different opportunities to come and have those experiences. Do you want this peace experience at home? Or do you want what you're currently experiencing? Or even, how do you know where you are? How do you know if home is peaceful or not? And having that experience. Yeah.
So that's where we're headed. We're working on our own peaceful empowerment website and things like that. So stay tuned. Stay with us. We're in creation mode, and it's a beautiful process. We hope you have. So we will see you next week. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Judy. Thanks.